Hey guys! Thank you for your support. Today's video is a collection of some Skinwalker stories, some fresh and some classics. Enjoy it and Merry Christmas to you all.
Hey there /x/. So I just experienced my first nope in a very long while and thought I would share. So it's about 2 a.m. here, and I was sitting in my dorm alone, had just got back from taking my boyfriend home actually, and I was gonna just look at Facebook and stuff before finishing some homework and then going to bed. My window was open because my room was hot and the air conditioners have not been turned back on in my dorm hall yet. I hear a weird sound, like a hissing sound, come from outside. At first I thought it was the sprinklers. I'm on the first floor and there are two outside my window, since they come on around this time. But when I turned to look out my window I saw something moving across the lawn. At first I thought it was a cat or a dog, as this campus has an abundance of strays roaming around. But the hissing noise got louder and almost sounded like rustling Walmart bags. It was the first sound I could think of to compare it to. I see this thing like lumber across the ground. I'm pretty sure it was walking on 4 legs, but it sounded like it was just walking on 2. I just saw the top of its head, and it looked white or gray. The sound of its footsteps made it sound like it was walking slowly, and it took a good 10 seconds for it to move out of my view. I waited terrified in my seat for about 5 minutes before getting up and shutting my window. I told my boyfriend about it and he said chupacabra, and I'm just sitting here noping the hell out. What do you think /x/? Am I just crazy or am I gonna wake up to slaughtered cats on campus tomorrow?
Lol, it was probably a wild animal. But here my first genuine nope. Sleep over friend's house. Tell friend, you're gonna go downstairs to watch TV. He says okay, he will get to a safe point and come down. Go downstairs to watch TV. His kitchen is to the right of the TV. Out of the corner of my eye see something move. Be freaked out for a second but shrug it off. See it again going back the opposite direction. Holy fog.jpg. Friend comes downstairs seconds later. Tell him what happened. Oh dude, it's just my grandpa, he sleeps in the basement.
When I was about 14 years old it snowed like crazy here, nothing abnormal, but it was also a harvest moon. Literally it is bright enough to see around and everything is light red. Well, we naturally have all our windows and stuff covered, and for some reason I wanted to look outside. Well, there was a friggin' guy in the field next to our house, cornfield, looked like he was wearing a coat made of rags and I couldn't see his face, because he was too far away, but he looked like he had a bandage on, or maybe a mask. And I saw him kind of tilt his head when I looked. I friggin' noped and sat in the house doing nothing half the night. This happened again when I still lived with my parents, except it was in a different state and we now lived in town. The bastard was standing in our dog pen we use in the daytime. Same situation too, had snowed like crazy, harvest moon. Just staring at the window I was at. And guess what? It snowed like crazy today. And a goddamn harvest moon. I've looked outside about 3 times and didn't see anything, might be because I am in a new town. Think I might pull an all-nighter tonight because this time there is no one else here with me.
Okay, so I have a story. Not sure if it is paranormal. But freaked me out. Live in Arizona. Went camping with some work friends in Sedona area. Near river. Wooded area. One friend has speech issues. Had some rhotacism issues, couldn't say or sound says very well. Anyway. Went camping in a remote area. Set up camp near river since it was before mosquito season. Rhotacism guy is quiet type, just sort of falls into background. Don't see much of him, everyone is running around exploring and swimming. Gets dark. Things settle down. Rhotacism guy still not around, but no one is too worried. Grown-ass man can take care of himself, not that late either. Getting darker, starting to worry. Rhotacism guy finally shows. Takes seat by campfire, stares blankly into it. Ask if he is okay. Yes. Ask where he was. Says nothing. He has always been aloof and quiet, so just let it go. He's back safe. That is all that matters. Start having fun with other friends again. Forget about Rhotacism Guy. He just sort of slips into the background as always. Go to bed. Rhotacism Guy and a few others stay up. Felt good going to bed. But couldn't fall asleep. Got more and more restless, drifting in and out. Kind of have to piss, thought maybe that would help me sleep. Get out of tent. Rhotacism Guy still in his exact spot, barely able to see him from the burned down coals. Nearly shit myself, creepy as hell. Just can't describe it. He was sitting there, completely still, just looking at the coals. Rub hands together and put them near fire pit, like he was warming them with a big fire. Not sure what to effing do. He turns and looks at me. Finally decide to say something. Maybe something freaked him out from when he disappeared. Maybe he saw a dead body or something and is now in a catatonic state. Start calming down. You okay? It is like 4 a.m. Suddenly stands up and starts talking. Acts cheery. But can't seem to put emotions behind it. Babbles on for a few moments about the sun coming up soon and getting another good hike in before having to leave. Wants to go for a hike with me. Like, right that damn second. Doesn't want anyone else to come or know where we are going. Doesn't want me even change clothes or put on shoes. Gets more and more persistent. Suddenly, realize that he is pronouncing words perfectly. Rhotacism Guy cannot say some words correctly for his life. This guy has not messed up a single word. Start freaking the hell out. Say that I am going to wake up others. Go towards the tents, rattle them, yell to friends that it is time to get up. Never take eyes off of Rhotacism Guy. He sits down, returns to his pose of just staring at the coals. Most friends get up. Pretty pissed at me. No damns are given about that. Say anything needed to keep them up. One guy bitches about the cold. Talks about getting firewood. Rhotacism Guy offers to join him. Oh fug, oh fug, oh fug. Don't know what to do. Out Rhotacism Guy? Try to lie to keep him still? Or just let friend go off with him and be thankful it is not me? Retarded me. I volunteer to join them. Rhotacism Guy stares at me for a moment. Might have been a glare, might have been just a calculating stare. Either way, I know that I saved my friend's life. Rhotacism Guy follows us, slowly, just really effing creepy. Like he didn't fit with us. Do not leave friend's side for a second, keep looking back at Rhotacism Guy. Friend gets the idea that something is up. He starts looking back at Rhotacism Guy too. Get the damn firewood, get back, never take eyes off of Rhotacism Guy again. Friend does same, he seems to get that Rhotacism Guy is acting weird. Just stares blankly. Doesn't talk unless spoken to. Will do out of place actions? Like, he'll kneel down and pull his shoelaces around, like he was pretending to tie them. All of the others return to sleep for a few hours. Once people wake up, no one but me and my friend notice that Rhotacism Guy is weird. He will randomly talk to the others, trying to get them to go off alone with him. No one does since he was always so weird about it. He asked one guy if he wanted to go piss, for example. Rhotacism Guy might be quiet, but hell, he isn't that aspy. Keep close eye on him. Make sure no one gets alone with him. Pack up. Time to go. I'm driving. Once we get near Sedona, Rhotacism Guy asks to be let out. Says he'll walk home. Bastard lives in Phoenix. 2-hour drive. Let him out. Do not give any shits, just want him out of the damn car. Others seem confused. But I don't care. He gets out. We drive off. Stare at him. He doesn't move. Just twitches a little bit. Make turn. Can't see him anymore. Immediately tell others what happened. Slightly scared that he'll jump out and start going gorilla on the car or some shit. But nothing. Others comment that he was being weird, but still don't agree with just leaving him. Can't seem to convey that he wasn't being weird. No one by the firewood friend believes me. He doesn't speak up much. Drop it. Back at work. Rhotacism Guy doesn't show up for a few days. When he does get back, stays far away from me. Not sure what to do. But he seems to be back to normal. Doesn't offer to go to the bathroom with any more people anyway. Eventually talk to him. He's pissed at to why we just left him out there. Yell at him for being so damn creepy. And besides, he asked to be let out. More arguing about the facts until I get it. He claims that I took him to show him something on the first day. Walked for hours, then I disappeared. He was lost in the woods the entire damn time. That was not Rhotacism Guy that spent the night with us. Never speak of it again, never tell Rhotacism Guy my side of the story.
Not much to say, though I will say it sucks being stuck talking to one. First time. Was dark in the middle of desert. Sitting with buddy on watch. Notice a woman walking through the brush. Point this out to buddy, he takes a look and shrugs. Ask if we still got or should we interfere. Said we got plenty time, just watch. Both of us watching while off and on, one of us takes a break to look around. Eventually notice something weird was going on with her. Point this out to buddy. We both watch while this woman turns into a effing coyote, which then lopes away. Look at each other. WTF was that, I asked him. He states that sometime weird shit happens and that it's best to just not talk about it. Why? Who would believe us? Good point, get back to being on watch. I am so demanding a bonus. He looks at me, shrugs and says yeah, that tends to happen. Much later. Get sent into gas station for drinks/snacks. Notice a woman that looks familiar. Ah, screw it. Go and get all the shit. Walk right past her, couldn't help but shiver, something was off about her. Get in line for the cash register. Notice she walks up right behind and smiles. Shit. One of the weirdest, scariest conversation I have ever had. Finally pay and leave. Get in the ride, buddy notices I looked spooked. He asks what's up, ask him if he remembers that one time with Coyote Chick. He gets this strange look and tells me not to say any more. As we're pulling away, notice the woman comes out and stares before ducking behind a corner. While driving for a little while, notice a coyote in the brush staring with weird ass eyes.
I swear to God I never believed in any of you guys here until I started reading these stories and suddenly made some connections. I swear to God this is all true. I live in Pennsylvania, just outside the city of Reading. There's a lot of thick forests around here, but nothing ridiculous, and it's mostly suburbs where I am. Farther out it's highways and farmland. Lucky for me I live right up at the edge of a small community at the very top of a hill. The forest is literally across the street from me. Anyway, somewhere around a year or two ago, my dad and I were outside having a personal chat about some recent tough events going on in my house, when suddenly we heard a weird sound in the forest across the road. We both stopped and looked over. I didn't think deer came out this late, I think I said. My dad just stared and looked kinda confused. Then suddenly we heard someone yell something like,
"Help! I'm bleeding!"
We both sat there staring into the woods where it came from. My dad stood up and said to get inside. We both rushed in and I watched him run upstairs to grab his handgun. My dad's a rough soda guy and always heads for his gun if he thinks something's going down. Something was definitely effing going down. I opened our back door again to our deck, it was a glass door, and peeked back out towards the forest to see if anyone would come sprinting out or something. Keep in mind we're at the edge of the suburbs and not exactly used to hearing people scream bloody murder in the middle of the night. Then I heard it. This loud, weird screech. It was like a cat or a woman, but it definitely wasn't human. It was weird, like it was high-pitched but not, and filled the entire neighborhood for a full 10 seconds before it suddenly went silent. I slammed the glass door shut and ran to the stairs just in time to see my dad stomping down in boots with his pistol. "Did you hear that?" I remember asking him. He just nodded and we both head out the front. By now a bunch of our neighbors were coming outside too. The scream was really friggin' loud, but I didn't even expect all these people to come out this late. It was almost midnight. My dad went down to the street and looked up at the forest. Another guy came up to my dad and he had some kinda handgun too. I watched them start chatting for a bit until suddenly another one of those screams pierced the air again. It was horrible and made me feel sick to my stomach. It went on for something like another 10 seconds and just suddenly cut off. Like friggin' idiots, my dad and this random neighbor guy decide to point their guns towards the forest and head in. I couldn't believe it. I mean, my dad is a hunter and he's been doing it since he was a kid. He's almost 40, but I'd be damned if I'd do something like that. They must have been in the forest for a good 20 minutes together, searching the darkness for God knows what. I sat outside with a bunch of neighbors that entire time, staring into the forest and waiting. Eventually they came back just fine. They stuck together the entire time according to my dad and thought they saw something like a tall guy in the forest at some point. When they tried to see if he was the one screaming, apparently he got on all fours and hauled ass into the forest. We all were pretty shaken up but parted ways and head back to our houses. That was pretty friggin' weird and no police or anything ever checked it out, but eventually we all moved past it. A long while after that there was a separate incident that I didn't exactly connect to the first. Later that year I was sitting outside with my friend on my back porch. We were talking and having a grand old time dicking around when I saw my cat Jinx pawing at my glass window. "What a stupid cat," my friend said. I agreed with him and played with the cat, putting my finger on the window while he pawed at my finger wherever it went. That's not what's weird though. Later that night I was in my room playing a game with my window open. My cat was somewhere in the house, along with all our dogs, so I know he was fine. It's important to note that my neighborhood has a real problem with stray cats though. Anyway, I was sitting there playing some games with my window open when I heard what sounded like a cat meowing outside. I paused my game, wondering if Jinx had gotten outside, and went to my window to listen. I heard that meow again, but it was a long, deep one, that kind you hear from a cat when they're pissed and backed in a corner with their claws out. I recognized it wasn't my cat, but it was still coming from the woods behind my house, so I stared into them and tried to see where the stray was at and what it was getting so pissy at. The cat did that deep, long, angry meow again, and it sounded sorta close to my actual yard. I heard some shuffling in the woods and then something weird happened. I thought I could hear someone talking. Except it wasn't like a normal person's voice. It was like some mentally unstable person trying to mimic someone else really badly. It was something like,
"Stupid cat."
Immediately I got creeped out, but, seeing as how my window was on the second floor, I felt fairly safe to keep listening. Then I realized the voice was changing.
"Stupid cat."
It clicked. It sounded like something trying to sound like my friend but doing really, really badly. Then there was a serious scuffle. I heard twigs breaking and the cat just going apeshit. I mean, it was really screeching and meowing like it was fighting for life or death. Then there was this loud thumping sound. It was like something big and heavy smacking against something else solid. After that the meowing stopped completely and whatever was out there went dead silent. I was pretty creeped out by this point and I shut my window and had real trouble sleeping that night. Nothing really happened since, aside from one incident, where I was getting a drink late one night, and thought I saw someone crouching really super low on my back porch, and looking into my glass door. Like I saw light reflect off their eyes, like when you see an animal at night or something. The door was locked, and it really freaked me right the hell out, and made me sprint to my room and wake up my dad, but he didn't find anyone or anything and been assuming it was just me being scared from all these stories on /x/. Now that I've read all these stories, I'm freaking the hell out. I've never seen one about something even remotely close to these things happening around my area, but now I'm freaking the hell out. That shit was literally in my backyard. But yeah, that's all I got.
Okay. Here goes. I always had an overactive imagination. I'm an artist and I was diagnosed with ADHD as a child. Never medicated though. So my mind was constantly everywhere. And I was always drawing and messing around as a kid. My imagination would do terrible things to me sometimes, probably a result of watching horror movies at a young age. Scary shit lurked around every corner. But on one occasion I knew it wasn't just my imagination. I was in 6th grade at the time, probably 12 or so. And I lived in a small town of a major highway. Like seriously small. The only major thing in the town burnt to hell 20 years ago. Then a kid died in the high school, so it was condemned. The only shit here was a cemetery, lake, post office, gas station, all on about 4 blocks of town. Another strange thing about this town is the fact that in the early 1900s it was booming. Now it was a dusty literal ghost town with about 40 people living there. People who never spoke or went outside. The only other kids were my best friends. And there were only 3 of us, and every morning we walked together to the bus stop. And none of us spoke on most mornings. One morning it was more foggy than usual. But I remember it was cold and a little misty outside. My uncle, now deceased, grew up here and he always told me messed up stories about this town. He told me to watch myself, strange shit was going on here. But he was kind of a loony. So I didn't worry about most times. This morning though. This morning felt off. I wasn't too stressed because I knew the others would be walking up soon enough. And when they didn't, I started freaking out. And when I stood alone at the bus stop, my imagination started going wild. I was in the middle of imagining a set of eyes in the mist when from about 10 feet away from me to the left I remember seeing something walking. This was absolutely real. I remember every detail. It was a man. In shape and stature. But the way it walked seriously makes my bones numb. Slow and rhythmic. Like it was floating. My 12-year-old eyes bulged out of my skull and I remember freezing in terror. Good God. I can't even stop shaking while typing this. Then he looked at me. Friggin' looked directly at me. Eyes. His eyes. They were so far apart they were almost on the sides of his head, which was oblong. Like, I don't know. A sideways egg, but not that long. And he had a small nose in the center. Absolutely hairless. No hair. Just pale dirty white skin. With crooked jagged yellow teeth underneath a disgusting smile. I have seen a ton of creepypasta threads, and heard almost exact descriptions of ghouls, and I've wondered if maybe they saw who, or what I saw, but it's never the same. If there isn't anyone here I'll stop. He didn't leave me until the headlights of the school bus came over the hill. Then without taking his eyes off of me he raised one hand and waved. But not like goodbye wave. More like a see you around wave. Then walked slowly away from the spot he stood for what felt like an eternity. When the bus pulled up I was crying. I don't know why. I don't remember what triggered it. But the driver had to call the school, who called my mom, who came and picked me up. I tried telling her what I saw. But she didn't believe me. She said that it was probably just a guy in a mask messing with me. I knew it wasn't. I know it wasn't because for the next 5 years of my life he was there. Watching me. And almost enjoying our time together. Like he was watching his favorite TV show. For the first few months his appearance sent me into a terrible frenzy of crying and screaming. And my mom, who was single most of my childhood, worked second and third shifts to keep our house, was never there at night or afternoon to watch me. So I never had anyone to tell. I was frightened and alone so much, but whenever I would see him I would call my grandma and talk to her on the phone, hoping he would see this and think I was talking to the cops or something. I don't know, I was 12 to 13. I would shut the blinds and watch TV and try not to think about it. He only would make appearances like once a week. So it wasn't an everyday kind of thing. Then at some point I remember that I realized he never came near me or touched me or anything. He just stood watching me. Whether it be outside my windows, or in the cornfield just beyond the fence to the playground at school. I remember I got used to him. And after a while he was nothing more than scenery. And when I would go on trips or vacation or something, he wasn't there. It was only around this small town. On one instance, when I was about 15 or 16, I was on a walk with a friend of mine. We were walking near the edge of the town where the paved roads turn into gravel and the cemetery sits next to the graveyard. When I saw Skinwalker, as I had taken to calling him, he was about 100 yards away, leaning casually up against a gravestone. I asked my friend while keeping my eye on Skinwalker, "Wanna go into the graveyard?" He was down, so we went in. It had become obvious to me that Skinwalker wasn't noticed by anyone other than myself. So it wasn't a shock that when I walked almost directly next to him, my buddy was oblivious. Shit. I remember that was the closest I'd ever been to him. He was so much more detailed this close. His skin. Christ. I'll never forget it. It was almost translucent. He wasn't just pale. He was old. And he was staring directly into my eyes. His eyes. They were green. Not black. I remember. Green with a hint of yellow and brown. I remember he had pretty eyes. But they were so beady and far apart. I had forgotten all about my friend when he said, "Why are you staring at that gravestone?" I looked at him and then Skinwalker. But he wasn't there anymore. Just an old weathered slab of tall concrete. I looked at it for a second. Then I noticed a name. 1846 to 1874. I paid no attention to this for a long time. Until I noticed that every time I was in the graveyard, there he was. Same pose. Same stone. Watching me. One day, I was reading a book on the paranormal when I thought about something. Maybe he was just a ghost. And maybe he wanted me to help him. So I came up with a plan. Yeah. I forgot to address this. When I first started seeing him, my first thoughts were to hide. But then when I got used to him, I didn't want to take pictures. I was too frightened to imagine the outcome of photographing him. And yeah, I didn't have a phone until I was 16. And even then it wasn't a camera phone. My mom had a camera, but it was pretty much off limits to me. We weren't well off on money. So things like that were kept out of my reach. I rode my bike to the graveyard. I don't know why I rode a bike. At the time I thought it might make a quicker getaway if he tried to get me or something. I don't know. Anyway, I approached him. Standing there as usual, and I said, "Can you hear me?" He just looked. Blank-faced. No? No response. "If you need my help, tell me." Then he seemed to get angry. I don't remember exactly what happened. All I remember was that I ran. I ran and didn't look back until I was on my bike. And then when I got onto my bike, I turned. He was standing there. Still at the gravestone with one arm stretches out to me. Like he was reaching for me. To come back. Or like he was sorry or something. I don't know. I didn't stick around for much longer to find out. I rode as fast as I could home. And that was the last time I saw him for a while. A few months went by and I started to get really anxious. Avoiding being alone, avoiding going outside after dark. I was so scared I would see him again. But at the same time I felt bad. Like I shouldn't have upset him. I felt sorry for him. I don't know. It's weird, but I felt like we were friends. I still feel like we were friends. The first time I saw him again was while I was riding the bus to school. I no longer had to walk to the bus stop though. I was in high school. But I know it was him. He was walking. Or dancing down the sidewalk, but it was only a quick glance. He watched me go past him. I knew he knew I was on. And that was it. His appearance became less and less frequent until one night. The last night I've ever seen him. I was 17 years old and my mom had announced we were moving. Things had gotten serious with her boyfriend and we were moving in with him. Our boxes were being packed and the house was on the market. It was about midnight and I was alone in the house as usual. I was drawing in my living room. I had my supplies laid out in front of me and I was going to town on the paper when I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. It was him. But this was a first. He was in my house. My first reaction was to scream. He took a step back. I remember this as being a strange moment. I was quiet. And he seemed scared. We watched each other for a moment, then I realized I had nothing to fear and I went back to drawing. He moved about for a moment and wound up standing behind me. It was like he wanted to watch me draw. So I remember letting him. He moved himself in front of me. He stood there looking not at me, my sketches, but at me. I'm not sure how long this lasted. But at some point I realized he must have wanted me to draw him. So I did. I started slowly. But eventually it was normal. I just sat completely silent drawing this being. This messed up thing that had followed me for damn near 5 years. And when I was done, I held my notebook up. He seemed to be happy. He seemed to be completely ecstatic actually. His smile seemed bigger and his eyes seemed more kind. I'm pretty sure I smiled too. He liked it. I have absolutely no idea how long we stayed that way. But eventually he turned away from me and walked into another room. And then, he was gone. Forever. My mom and I moved and went on with our lives. I'm 20 now and living on my own. And I wish with everything inside of me I didn't leave that notebook with my mother because it's probably in storage somewhere now. I wish I could show you guys that drawing. But it's not here at my apartment. So, I did this for you all. Here he is. His image forever burned into my skull. I would also like to say this. Every year, since I've moved, I go back to that gravestone and I leave flowers. Every year I've hoped to see him standing there. And I plan on doing this until I die. Shit/x/, that's my story. Few people know it. And even fewer believe me. Any questions?
Not sure if this is a Skinwalker story, but freaked me out. Be out camping with large group of friends. Invite shy girl along. She doesn't really start conversations, can hardly keep them going. Catch her chatting it up with this one guy. Happy for a second, she is making friends. Suddenly, realize I can't place the guy she is talking with. He did not come with us. We are way out in the middle of nowhere. Sit down next to her, introduce myself. Guy just looks at me. I'm going to go eat food now. His exact words. We just ate breakfast. But he got up and left. Never see him again. Could have just been some random guy who happened by. Still, defac.
I've never told this story to anyone, and I don't really intend to tell it again. I have a pounding migraine today, and this thread has kept me good company as I've drifted in and out. I don't really like talking about this time in my life, but I want to contribute. When I was 10 to 12, I lived with my mother. We were below poverty level poor. We lived up in the mountains around Santa Cruz, California. My mother had a friend that owned a large bit of property up there, and he let us stay in a trailer up there. Our trailer was very small, and was right beside a garden. A chain-link fence ran around the garden, to keep the dog the owner had out, along with other animals. Deer and things are very common in the area. Also inside the fenced area was a single room. It was built like a tiny house, but it was only a single room on the inside. This room had electricity, and since our actual trailer didn't, I spent a lot of my time in there. I was super into video games. Sorry, this story will be fairly long. I am bad at not writing a lot. I just want to tell it right, if this will be the only time. Taking on a random name so I can be easily identified in this thread. There was one thing you should know right now. This small fenced-in area was only a small part of the property, but most of it was heavily forested. Also, I refused to leave the fenced area, because the owner's dog had been mistreated by children in the past and was very sketchy towards me all the time. If I was alone, it would bite at me, even through the fence. The fence was tall, at least 7 feet high, and wasn't movable though. So as long as the gate was closed, I was safe? That said, tiny bit of the property. There is no one else around for miles and miles. Now, I tell you all this, because I think it is important you understand what kind of scene this was before I really get into this story. We have a fenced-in location that seems fairly safe. It contains a trailer and a single room with power that is not connected to the trailer. Nothing else around for miles. My mom's van is parked out in front of the gate to the fenced-in area, and a single unpaved road runs from this garden for about a mile to the main house. Now then, I brought friends up there to sleep over here and there. We all thought it was pretty cool, you know? Like camping out, sort of. Besides, we would get our own room to stay in, to play video games all night long. It was like a dream come true. The downside was simple. When it got dark out, it got really dark out. No city around, and the trailer would not be lit up. There was no bathroom to use in the room, and you would have to walk through the dark garden in order to get to the trailer to use it. Odd things happened out here from time to time. It was always something that could be somewhat easily explained away though. Noises like people working at night sometimes. Or once me and a friend were sitting out in the garden, and we saw a shadow as big as a small bear bound up a tree, but the tree didn't shake like there was weight on it. The dog also creeped me out, but you know. Angry dog, I was a kid. It happens. Now, I am a scaredy cat. I always have been. To be honest, I don't know why I even come to /x/. I have trouble walking through a lit house if I am all alone. My friends, however, tend to be more outgoing. Just the kinds of people I get along with. This time I had a friend over. His name was Jacob. We were staying up all night and playing Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles on my Sega Genesis on a ratty old television. We started playing as the sun went down, and by the time we were finishing up the game it was about 2 a.m. That's when we heard it. We turned off the game getting ready to find something else to play. There was a rumbling in the woods behind the room we were in. Like somebody was rolling something really heavy around. We hadn't heard it before because the noise from what we were playing was loud. Immediately I had goosebumps. Jacob was not really worried about it, but it's not like there was someone else's house or yard right over there. It was forest for miles, and it sounded like someone was constructing something or some shit. Dragging or rolling something really big. Eventually Jacob convinced me to just play some more games. I agreed on the condition that we turn the volume down so we could hear if something happened. We started playing, and I didn't even notice the noise stop because I was getting engrossed. A couple hours later, Jacob said he had to use the bathroom. I was feeling fine by then, so I was fine when he left to the trailer to relieve himself. He was taking a while, so eventually I decided I was going to go check on him. Besides, I could use the bathroom and grab a snack while I was at it. I opened the door to leave, and he was just standing at the doorway. Right outside the door, facing it. Scared the shit out of me. I asked him what he was doing and he just stood there. Blocking the exit. I realized he must have sneaked up to the door, because I could hear him walk away from the room, but I hadn't heard him walk back up to it. It was super quiet out there without the noises of the city. I should have been able to hear. He refused to say anything or respond. He just stood there. I told him he was really creeping me out. But it was not unlike him to try and scare me like this. Finally I decided to just go to the trailer and use the bathroom myself. Partially because I knew my mother was asleep in there. I told him what I was doing, then moved past him. When I pushed him out of my way a little, his skin felt freezing to the touch. I jumped a little. But it was a cold night and he had been standing out there for like 30 minutes. So I figured that was to be expected. I walked as quickly as I could over to the trailer. He followed me, like right on my tail. It was unnerving. I joked a little, saying that he already surprised me by scaring me at the door. The joke is over already. Finally I got to the trailer and walked in. He didn't follow, just stayed at the doorway. I checked on my mom, who was fast asleep, then turned to go into the bathroom. Now, it being a porta potty, we keep the bathroom door shut because it, well, smells bad. When I reach for the door and try to open it though, it's locked. A nervous voice came from behind the door. I'm in here. I quickly turned to look at Jacob, but the door was still open and there was nothing there but pitch black night. I freeze in terror. I would have heard the bathroom door open if he had come in behind me and gone that way. There is no way to do it quietly, it creaks like a hell. I yelped so loud that my mom woke up startled. I stared at the doorway, unable to bring myself to move a muscle. She got up, walked over there and looked out. Not seeing anything, she closed the door and asked me what was wrong. By now, Jacob was coming out of the bathroom and acting perfectly normal, but a bit confused. I explained what had happened. Jacob said he was just taking a long time in the bathroom, basically. Neither of them believe me at all, no matter how much I insist. My mom is sure that I just got sleepy and imagined it. Jacob thought I was trying to prank him. So my mom gets out a big flashlight and walks us back to the room. She tells us to go to sleep, then leaves and goes back to bed herself. Now, this room doesn't have any windows or anything. So, after a while I calm back down a little. I'm telling myself that my mom was right. I must have had a waking dream or something. Jacob insists he was in the bathroom the whole time, and I'm inclined to believe him because there is just no way to really get around without being heard. So, I settle down. I'm a little rattled, but I am thinking I can just sleep it off through the night. Suddenly, the dog starts going nuts. Right behind us. The room is up against the fence, so the dog must have been right behind the room on the other side. I felt like I jumped so high I was surprised I didn't hit the roof. Jacob's laughing at me like, "Ha, dog barking at a squirrel or some shit, and you are shifting yourself." It keeps going like that for a long time though. Suddenly the barking stops and gets replaced by whimpering. We hear the dog run away. There are about 45 seconds of silence before we hear something new. A small scratching sound on the back wall of the room. We both try to be as silent as we can. Eventually it stops. After 5 or so minutes of silence, Jacob decides to be brave. He insists he is going to go get my mother up, tell her something crazy is going on, and we're going to go from there. With some kind of divine adult protection, no doubt. I wish he wouldn't leave me alone, but there is no way I am going out there. Never ever. He arms himself as best he can with a tennis racket we had in the room with us. Then he takes a couple deep breaths and opens the door and dashes out. I close it as quick as I can behind him. In less than 30 seconds, I hear a scream. Not long after, the door flies open, and he comes back in looking pale as a ghost. He's breathing like he just ran a marathon. His eyes look as big as dinner plates. I ask what is going on 4 times before he finally starts getting words out. He tells me he walked out there, and as he was walking through the garden as quick as he could, he saw my mom just standing there. He tried to talk to her, but she stared at him with a blank expression. Getting super creeped out because of what happened to me earlier, he took a couple more steps towards her, telling her that he thought something was in the woods. Suddenly, her face turned to an awkward smile. Then he realized something terrible. He hadn't noticed sooner because of the darkness and how much of a hurry he had been in. She was on the other side of the fence. Now, the door to this room does not lock. And as I explained earlier, this room had no windows. He had been trying to move stuff in front of the door as he told this story, and by the end I was helping him. In retrospect, whatever was harassing us seemed to be averse to actually entering the room or the trailer, because the Jacob one didn't come in either time he could have. And this room was not sturdy. Either way, we stacked everything we could against the door, thinking somehow that like cartoons this would definitely keep the creature out. For the rest of the night we heard scratches coming from all around the room. I cried. Jacob looked like his mind had left his body with fear. At one time I thought I heard it speak too. I heard from right next to where I was resting against the wall, in my mother's voice, quietly. The same exact phrasing and intonation she had used earlier in the night. "What's wrong?" Followed immediately by "Go to sleep. The sun must have come up eventually." The scratching eventually stopped. We heard my mom come to get us, this time actually hearing footsteps. We absolutely refused to leave the room. My mom had to go get the property owner and have him take the door off. When we saw that it was actually her, I burst into tears again. We never had any experiences like these again, and eventually moved away. But that night still haunts me. I still refuse to go out at night unless I am with a bunch of people, and I will never ever live in the woods again. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed hearing about this. If you want to make an image and repost it, feel free. I probably won't tell this again though. Thanks for listening. The worst part was it was a completely different intonation. Kind of like taking 2 different sentences out of 2 different scenes in a TV show, but the same person talking and then clipping them together. Words cannot describe how effing eerie it was. If I was not all drugged up on pain meds due to this migraine right now, I would be beside myself having to even talk about this.
OC incoming, have posted it once before though. B junkie. There's this heroin/coke dealer who has his little crew and always throwing cash around, doing dumb shit. One day over there buying my shit for the day. Announce they're all going camping, they love to do impulsive random shit. Beg to go with, I love camping, especially with crazy, cool people such as these folks. Leave Minneapolis to the wilderness outside Duluth. Group of 7 people. Setting up camp, disorganized as hell. One couple already screwing in their tent, lol. With all the chaos and getting high, events weren't clear until later. 2 dudes go to get firewood and make sure nobody else is around to see us using needles and call cops. Nobody really takes note/cares to remember they leave. 30 minutes later one guy comes back. Where's the other one? I went for wood, he went to make sure we were safe to get high. Whatever, he's probably just nodding off somewhere. 2 goddamn hours later, other guy strolls into camp, looking very not high. Where were you? Oh. Looking at birds. Lol, what the hell, what junkie likes bird watching? Nighttime comes around. Dude who came back later acting strange, seems generally confused by our weird activities, looks almost pissed, confused. Sits down on a log by fire suddenly, awkwardly, like he's really drunk. Hard junkies don't drink. Junkies be acting strange always, whatever. Been almost 9 hours since we arrived. People getting dope sick withdrawal, time to get stoned. Dope is passed around, everyone desperately starts cooking up. Between cooking and strapping up I notice the guy just smelling the chunk of dope, looking like he can't handle the smell. WTF again. Everyone's done shooting up, the guy is still sniffing the chunk. By now everyone notices. He cautiously licks the dope, has incredibly strong taste and smell of uber vinegar. Makes this horrible, animal gagging/hacking sound. The hell. The main dealer guy offers to cook and prepare shot for him. He was already high and didn't notice strange behavior too much. The guy mumbles, Maya. Shoots him up. Note, your average junkie does enough dope in one shot to kill King Kong, and his whole family. Tolerance is a bitch. Guy's whole body starts to shake. His eyes are popping out, everyone's still staring with dopey glazed eyes. He makes this strange panic choking breathing sound, like there's really wet towel in his mouth/throat. Blood literally pops out of his nose, incredibly dark colored. Starts to make intense high-pitched screeching scream noise, stopping to choke/cough suddenly, every second or two. Not normal OD. Horrible, horrible stench permeates the camp. Holy shit. Falls over backwards, panic ensues. Dude, you gave him too much, shit. Main guy goes to help him up, can't, stench increases to the point where the rest of us are gagging and or puking. Hear very distant scream from forest, amid the panic I think nobody else notices. Hear other screams/screeching join in, everywhere, what the hell, the panic levels cannot be contained, junkies screaming inside the camp too. Screeching outside camp grows and grows, ears are ringing, stench is clogging my lungs, can't take it. Overwhelming smell and high-pitched ringing too much to handle. Blackout. Awake in morning. Look around. Very shaky, can smell hints of stench from last night. Nobody to be seen, except that friggin' guy, the goddamn guy, boots sticking up from the log he fell off of. Walk over slowly. Looks like he's been dead for weeks, skin is tight over his face, white and blue, eyes sunken, looks like he lost 80 pounds before dying. Blood covering him, I don't know from where. Realize I am covered in blood too, There are scrapes and dents/holes all over the ground, some obviously animal tracks, human footprints, handprints, and combinations of all. Some seem to be dragged. Withdrawing and losing my mind, steal the main dealer's car, go home, and never speak of it again. Never heard a word from or about any of those people ever again, except for one girl, who got put in a psych ward I heard. Never visited her. Realized something strange. We were hours from civilization, by car, and I took the car. She had no food/water, no car. How did she get back?
I was hanging out with a buddy, and we got spooked, after hearing some really odd noises in the brush. It was early winter here in Minnesota, and there was just a small layer of snow. It was late, and we were walking home down the long dirt road, about 1.5 miles long. We got about an eighth of a mile down the road, when we heard this, and it being so late we decided to head back to the bar, where we had came from. My buddy turned around. He yelled, "Oh my God, oh my God," and started sprinting, and me thinking he just flipped, I ran after him, until I heard the noises behind me, and then I too broke out into that full sprint. When I finally caught up with the guy, outside the bar, drinking Mountain Dew, and panting, I asked him what the hell happened, since he just Usain bolted to the bar. He just said I saw yellow reflective eyes. In the woods. The next day we went back to the scene. There were clearly tracks in the light layer of snow, ones that looked like large human feet, that began getting thinner and elongated, until they were the size of an average Labrador's, and headed down the road until 100 yards from the bar all the way into the woods, where we eventually lost the tracks. An event neither of us will soon forget. My friend actually snapped a photo with a disposable camera before he fled, apparently, and he just developed the film. The lady at Walmart that developed the film looked at him with worried, or shocked eyes, apparently, and just asked what it is. He said he doesn't know. Almost gave the lady a heart attack. I will put up the picture when I get it and have it scanned in.
Alright, I have a possibly Skinwalker related story. Fortunately, I didn't encounter it myself. Be with friends in local park, 6 of us total. 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. Friend and I take her car to go get beer. No one had been drinking beforehand, everyone's sober. It's only a block or 2 away. She waits in car while I run in for beer since she was only 19, I'm 22. I come back. What the hell, the bitch left me. Angrily walk back towards park. Get stopped by cop, since I'm carrying beer and I look younger than I am. He asks to see my ID and asks me where I'm going. I show him and tell him I'm walking home. Notices my last name and realizes he knows my dad, smallish town, everyone knows everyone. Turns out he used to be over at my house when I was a kid. It's a quiet night, so he decides to pull to the side and bullshit with me for a while. You've grown up so much, etc. I give him my dad's new cell number, because he wants to catch up with him, blah, blah, blah. Point is, I talked to him a while, a good 20 minutes. Finally he gets a call and leaves, so I go back to park. Get there, friends all look at me confused. Apparently I had come back to the car in a disoriented state, and when the girl who drove asked me about the beer, I told them they were out. Store's never been out of beer. She's a dumb cunt for believing that. They tell me I rode back with her and had been at the park with them up until a few minutes ago, acting like I was high. I had apparently just left around the corner saying I was going to buy cigarettes. They thought it was odd since I don't even smoke, but figured I was just high somehow and ignored it. Most of friends are /x/files as well, so they quickly put the pieces together. I assume that they're just messing with me. They stick to their story and remain freaked out. I think they're messing with me. Regardless, decide to go to one of them's houses to drink. Still think they're screwing with me, but it was getting cold, so I went along. Next day one of my friends shoots me a message on Facebook with a YouTube link. The fuck? It's all of us at the park. I have no memory of the conversations that were taking place. Throughout whole video I kept doing weird things. At one point a friend hands me a soda. I just stare at the can like I don't even know what the hell it is. When camera comes back to me, soda is completely gone, can and all. More bullshit of them acting goofy at the park. I don't see me participation in much, just sitting on curb staring at something. Suddenly, worst realization ever. Notice that the me in the video's right arm is tattoo free. I have a fairly large but not massive tattoo on my arm. Rewind video. Through whole video, my tattoo is just straight friggin' missing.
Be camping with chick I like, but she doesn't have feelings for me. Everything's going well, it's our last night out so we're drinking and whatnot. She gets really drunk and I start joking with her about snuggling and shit. She gets up and says she's going to take a piss. Stumbles out into the bush. 5 minutes later she's back. I am all like, WTF took you so long? She's really quiet. Ask her about that blowy joey joking around. She starts giving me a blowy joey. Holy hell, this is awesome. She's about to finish when the real her comes stumbling back into camp asking where I picked that chick up from. What? The one sucking me off gets panicked, looks at her and bolts into the forest. WTF is going on? Race into the car with her and we hide under a sleeping bag until the sun rises. All night till the sun came up, there was screeching outside the car.
Decided I would post this, am not sure if it was a Skinwalker but whatever. This is also told from my parents and they swear it happened. They live on the outskirts of Bethlehem and we are surrounded by forest. Be a toddler at the time. It's late at night with no one awake. Loud ass banging coming from basement door. Dad grabs handgun, and walks downstairs and opens the door. Some black guy standing there, they are up a hill and surrounded by forest mind you, so odds are this isn't the town drunk wandering by thinking it's funny to go banging on doors late at night. He starts to talk but my dad can't understand anything he is saying. Tells him if he ever sees him around here again he will kill him. Never happens again. The thing that drove me to posting this is the fact that a little while after, my mom swears she saw some kind of wolf/coyote thing standing at the back door growling.
I wonder about this too. I grew up in a town pretty far from a major city and the truth is it was a much different time. When I was in the early years of primary school, in a town where everyone knew each other, I befriended the child of a family who had emigrated to my country only recently, and there was a language barrier. They acquired land close to the tracks that could take you to a city and build their lives there, away from everyone else. It really didn't help their integration, put a real target on the oldest child's back that first school semester, the same one I went to school with. Before the end of that school year though, the father became quite handy around town. He was professionally trained as a machinist but found local work as a mechanic. The mother was very outgoing and gave violin lessons on Saturdays. She made sure they became at least recognizable in the town. Over the holiday, they went away to meet relatives in the city, who were visiting from their country of origin, I believe Bulgaria. So they were to be gone for exactly 1 week and return in time for a social gathering organized by the people in the town, my parents included. The mother, let's call her Mrs. B, was going to play violin for everyone, only something was very different about her. She arrived alone, the day before the whole group had planned on coming back. The perplexing bit, something I didn't personally recall, is that she arrived in the middle of the day on the side of town opposite to the train station. When I was growing up in Germany, the economy was quite bad, so it was not uncommon to be wearing the same dress 3 times a week, etc. So she was walking into town, in the same clothes she left in with no luggage or family. I only heard about this from my mother, who described Mrs. B's behavior akin to her cousin, who had suffered a lobotomy during his teenage years. So I did witness my own neighbor guide her to her home. She seemed very frazzled, her personality had made a U-turn. That night I recall being very restless in my sleep. I shared a room in the attic of our house. It was very cool in the summer. My parents slept on the second floor of our house. I had a terrible fear of the dark, so going down the dark spiral staircase was out of the question. I sat by the circular window and watched outside. Of course there was nothing to be seen, aside from the occasional bird and a cat. I sat watching until my eyes got heavy, but then the cat came scurrying into view, really running after something I didn't see. I kept watching, and then came Mrs. B, in a full-out sprint, coming what looked like after the cat, in the same clothes I had seen her in earlier. She stopped short of going out of my view, and stood there. She didn't flinch, stood there. I watched for what felt like forever, and then the next thing I knew, I was being woken up by my siblings for chores and breakfast. That next day, the whole family arrived, without the mom. The unfortunate circumstance is, the father couldn't speak nearly as well as the mother. We met them at the station with some meat and other goods, and they seemed pretty dry. When my father asked how the trip was, he said simply that he wished his wife wouldn't have had to stay back due to illness and that he was very tired. My father did not press it. They exchanged some more small talk and we headed back to our house to prepare for the evening. She never ended up playing violin for us that evening, only because she was back in the city, said her man. I did hear rumors that someone had broken into their house while they were gone. The father, son and daughter eventually moved to the city as he found better work there. I didn't see the son again until I was in university. I did ask him about the events, which I didn't recall nearly as well then. He said she was in a catatonic state after they were hiking in some woods north of the city where they met their relatives. He did tell me she recovered from her ailment shortly after they moved to the city and claimed to have very disturbing nightmares or even visions that she was cursed or afflicted by some terrible thing. He's the only one I saw again, and it was only by chance. The story, much less detailed than this, is sort of an urban legend in the town I grew up in. I had the pleasure of hearing it the last time I was there, though it's much more urban now, the town. If ever I had an experience where it seemed like there was a duplicate or imposter doing some kind of malevolent work, it was definitely that year/summer of my childhood.
OK/V/ that happened to me about 4 years ago. Lives with grandmother in a huge house with 3 floors. My room is in the 2nd floor. It was about midnight. I was using my computer playing some game/watching anime. Get sleepy, get out of the living room and start walking to my room, that is close to the stairs to the 1st floor. The door that lead to the stair are wooden and with some holes in it. In one of these holes, there's a head, staring at me. Hairless, white, with deep black eyes, head friggin' staring at me. I get completely frozen and can't move for about 5 minutes, just there staring at the head. Start to slowly going back to living room, then rushed and found somewhere to hide. 20 minutes later I go to check if the head is gone. It's gone, but the door to the stair were open.
I don't know anything about skinwalkers. My post might be a bit irrelevant. Living with my father. Our home was in the middle of forests. We have only few neighbors. We have a forest of our own. Behind our forest there is a large field. On the field there lives an old couple. The couple has a dark past. Very dark indeed. Wife murdered their 2 sons in the 80s. She drowned them in a well filled with icy water. She was effing mental. Back to the story. It's winter. Because we live in Northern Europe, it gets really effing cold and dark on the evenings. Me and my dad were chilling by our house, watching stars, listening to nature. We could hear a terrific scream. The scream was coming from behind our woods, where the messed up couple lives. Oh shit. It's not possible to see directly at the field, but we could see the sky above the field. The sky was red like fire. Rest of the sky was night black. We could hear barking. Help! Someone shouted. It was probably a woman. The whole atmosphere was chilling. We were frozen. Start to hear loud snapping sounds from our forest. It's getting closer. Let's go inside Anon. We went inside. The sky stayed red for few minutes. Then the noises stopped. What the hell just happened? I have no clue. Next summer it's 3 a.m. lying in my bed, trying to get some sleep. Dad is sleeping upstairs. I could hear him snoring. Someone opens our front door. Heart starts to pound. Door closes. Nobody came in. I tried to calm myself by saying maybe it was just a wind. Door opens again, and closes right after with a loud bang. Didn't sleep much that night. The psycho lady who lives on the field has a creepy habit. She wears white dress and goes to a lake where she drowned her sons. She lights few candles and just wanders around the fields. She does this only when it's full moon. Sorry about my English.
I posted this story to a Nope thread, but seeing these pop up all around it seems related to this, haha. I'll tell it non-green text, since that took away a lot of the detail. Also apologies for any typos, I'm writing all of this on my phone. A few years back, our Girl Scout troop went camping in this older campsite, been used for a long time and you could tell. This was the first time I ever went camping, so I was already on edge thinking I'd get jumped by a boogeyman or whatever. Now our cabin was the closest to the edge of the woods. The way it was, 3 yards from our back door the thicket started. I also had the luck of having a bed next to the back door, with my friend on the other side. Our cabin was farthest from the fire pit/campfire area. So any loud sounds couldn't be heard from that far away, unless if was like a gunshot, you could hear that. On the second night we were there, all of us were around the campfire eating s'mores and all that good food. I was getting bored, so I told my friend Michelle that I was gonna go and get my sketchbook and doodle in the cabin. She said that was cool, so off I went. I headed into the cabin and got my book, but realized I left my jacket near the pit. It was effing cold then, so I went out the back door to go get it, but when I opened the door I saw something odd. Michelle was walking into the woods, taking her time like she was enjoying the scenery. I was really confused, being that she would never go into the woods at that time of night. I shouted at her enough to get her attention. "Michelle, get away from there, it's too dark out there." She turned around and gave me this weird, uncomfortable smile. Her eyes didn't show any emotion, just an odd grin. She then continued to walk into the wood, but when she got to where the light from the little lamp on top of the cabin didn't shine, she took off sprinting. I almost shit and considered getting help, but the time it would take to run far enough back to camp to get the others' attention, she could have gotten lost. So I took off to follow her. I had a flashlight with me, cause one of the rules the pounded into you was always take a light with you, which would be helpful in this situation. I was running, trying to dodge trees as I ran yelling for her. I got 15 to 20 yards into the thick where I heard someone speak a few feet in front of me. It sounded like this.
"It's too dark out there."
I freeze, knowing that is not my friend. I had my flashlight pointed near the ground so I wouldn't trip. Raising it up to the sound, I saw something I wish I hadn't. This thing looked like Michelle but didn't at the same time. Her features were more gaunt, and her stance was slouched. She was breathing heavily in and out, sporadically. I took a step back and heard a new voice right beside my ear.
"Skin her."
I turned around and started running. I didn't bother looking behind me, knowing it was behind me from the branches breaking. I kept running, it seeming to take longer to get out than it did to get in. As I got to the edge of the brush, a painful stinging sensation started in my hand and went up my arm. I bolted, and kept running until I got back to the group. I stopped short, only if not to run into the other girls. They looked at me, some chuckling. I suppose I looked silly running that fast towards them. One of the girls looks down and lets out a small yell and points at my hand. I look down and see that my right hand from the bottom of my pinky to an inch past my wrist was a bleeding cut. Looking later, it sliced my palm half and inch or one whole one. I got it wrapped up, kept calm for the rest of the night and the next day, then got the hell out of there. No one else had anything happen that I know of. I had to go back the year after for another G's trip. Our cabin that year was right next to the fire pit and main hall, so that made me feel better. I don't know if it was actually a skinwalker, but it sure spooked the hell out of me. And this is why I hate camping in Florida.
Not my story, but some girl posted this a couple months ago. It was in a scary personal stories thread and it creeped me the hell out. Camping with friends. Walking along this path with my friend talking loudly. She asks me, "Oh crap, Meg, did you bring that extra sleeping bag for me?" "Yeah, I got it, we're good." We keep walking. Getting pretty far away from camp. Suddenly from the brush across the stream that our path paralleled.
"Meg, did you bring that extra sleeping bag for me?"
It was so inhuman, sounding like an animal almost. It repeats several times. Each time it sounds more and more like my friend. We are terrified. We start running back. Hear leaves moving behind us. Too afraid to look. From behind us in a low whimper.
"Wait, I'm hurt."
Sounds just like me. I'm crying. We keep running. As we get closer to the opening into the field we were camping in, the bushes are thicker. We're not real fit and we had been running pretty hard. Gasping for air. Directly from the right of us.
"Tired yet?"
Sounds like her again with almost a bark. Shaking so hard at this point. I turn and look back. See this massive mound of fur in the bushes, turn and go back the way we came from. Get to camp and tell our friends what happened. They of course don't believe us. We refuse to stay there that night. Get in her car and drive to town and sleep in a cheap motel. About 10 p.m. her phone rings. Friends at the camp.
Jesus, will you guys give it up? It's been 2 hours, you are not scaring us, just keeping us from sleeping.
Friend gets hysterical, telling them to leave. They're convinced we drove back there or in the woods, yelling that we're hurt and for them to come help us. I turn up the motel TV and let them hear that we're in town. They hang up immediately and drive to our motel and spend the rest of the night. Next day we go back for our shit and never go camping again.
Sure, bro. Friend tells me a story. Says he was in the forest and he saw a lady. He tried to talk to her, but she ignores him. He looks away, and back to her, claims she disappeared. He looked for a while and found nothing. Asks me to help him look around the forest again. Agree to go over weekend, we decide to camp. We get our shit set up and decide to walk around a bit. No luck, but it's nice out so I don't mind. We get bored and head back to our camp for snacks. End up hanging out and digging around until nightfall. So, we get a campfire started and cook a dinner, because we've been out and running around all day now, not really seeing anything except for a few animals. We start chatting it up and I tell a few ghost stories about stuff in Austin. We're feeling good and he admits he was probably just seeing things when I ask him about this lady. I shrug, say it's all cool, and we go about our biz. We decide to go back out into the forest just for fun, because neither of us is tired. We're out pretty far from our campsite, crossing a little creek, but all is still going well. We hear a sound out in the distance, so we turn off our flashlights and proceed cautiously. We spot the source. It's a mother-effing lady. We get closer, and slowly approach her, making sure not to surprise her. Friend decides to say hello again. She just glares at me, continuing to ignore him, and walks off. Disappears further into the forest. Genuinely curious now, friend decides he wants to head back, so I ask him to wait at the creek and I'll be right there. I proceed forward and I see her again. She turns to where I'm hiding and makes this low growl. She runs behind some trees, I run a little bit. I see a wolf, freaked out because holy shit, that's not a lady. She makes more angry sounds at me and runs off, so I give it up and head back to camp with my friend. I tell him what I saw. He seems freaked out. I shrug, dismiss it, we go to bed. We wake up around 5 a.m. to some howls, we pack up and decide to head back out of the area. On the path out, I think I see a person a ways out, but it's dark and don't really give a shit, I mostly want to head home. Friend and I almost out, but we're distracted by deer remains on the path. We look around as we go around it, and she's watching us. Freak out a little bit, my bro is running back to the truck before I even notice. She disappears, I get my run on too. Nearly to the truck, my friend is loading it up. All of a sudden I'm knocked on my ass and there are teeth in my arm. Wolf growls at me, but my friend shoots a tree and scares it off. Get my ass in the truck, we speed off. Never return to that area of the forest. The end.
This thread is still up? Not sure if skinwalkers, but weird goings on in an urban area. Moved to new house outside city in Delaware. Area and rather wooded but never more than a few acres. Family of foxes live somewhere in woods in backyard, see them all the time, skittish as foxes usually are. They see you, they run. One night smoking a cig out back when I notice fox at the tree line. Just sitting there. Make eye contact, still just sits there staring. Get a little uneasy and get chills. WTF am a man, damn it. Start barking and throwing rocks/twigs at the fox. Still just effing sitting there. Finish cig and nope inside. Days pass, nothing happens. One night watching TV. Cat is at the sliding glass door. Nothing unusual there. Suddenly puffy tail. Rocky? Rocky, what is it? Doesn't turn around, this cat always responds to his name. No more puffy tail, still won't turn around. Rocky. Nothing. Get up and go to the door. Open the curtains and there's Mr. Fox in a staring contest with Rocky. Neither one even acknowledges me. Tap on the glass and both scatter. Later that night, back to TV. Corner of my eye I see Rocky. Come here, boy. He just sits there. Staring at me. Not usual behavior for Rocky, if you make eye contact he'll come right up to get pet. Get up to grab him. Cocks his head to the side like a confused dog, puffy tail, hiss, and effing books. WTF whatever, dude. Go out front to smoke a cig the next day. Rocky is an inside cat with no urge whatsoever to go outside. He'll sit at the door and look out, but when he sees the door about to open he'll back up. Not today. Open door to come back inside and Rocky books from across the room and out the door. Head straight for the woods. I go inside to grab some pounce, he'll come running if he hears me shake it. Start to head outside but he's already at the door pawing frantically to get in. Acts perfectly normal after he gets inside.